Hello, and welcome to Anne-Marie's Workshop. My name is Anne-Marie, and I love to make things. If you like to make things, you are in exactly the right place. Now, while I might like to make things, I love to make dresses, and especially dresses for little girls. I had 2 little girls myself, and I cannot imagine a world where they struggled to find clothes to wear. Project Dress a Girl Around the World 2022 is spearheaded by Mari from Mari Sews Curves and several makers, hundreds of makers from around the world. And last year, this project raised over 890 dresses that were distributed around the world to girls in need. We are hoping for even more this year. This is National Sewing Month, and it is also Dress a Girl Around the World Month, in my opinion. So hopefully September, we will pull together and sew a lot of dresses. I know a lot of makers have already started and have already been sending them in. If you want more information about this project, all of it is listed below in the description box, including links to the Dress a Girl Around the World organization, as well as links to this project, where you can send your dresses and what are the requirements for the dresses. Now, if you're new to my channel, you may not know about the love affair I have with Ankara Fabric. I'm wearing some today, and I love to make them because they make beautiful dresses for little girls. So let me tell you a little bit about the history of this fabric. Now, here's a brief history of Ankara Fabric. In 1847, there was a huge demand for cotton fabric. A Dutchman named, get his name right, Peter Ventnor van Vlissingen, he mechanized a method for creating highly colored, beautiful cotton fabric based on batiks that he had seen the method in Indonesia. So he created all these fabrics for the European market, but guess who loved them? Not the European markets, the African markets. So Ankara, which is Ankara Fabric, which is what is called in West Africa, because remember, Africa is a continent, not a country. And in East Africa, it is called, hold on, let me find it for you. East Africa is called Kitenge. I bet you're wondering, what's up with the wax? Well, because the fabric is made as a batik, and the wax helped to set the cotton in the fabric. And that's why we ended up with wax prints. Now, due to advances in technology, we now create these fabrics in huge quantities all over the world. But it originated with a Dutchman. So, as far as cultural appropriation, it is a European developer who used Indonesian technology to create a fabric loved by Africans. So that means Ankara is for everyone, and especially little girls. Now, the reason why I'm so attracted to Ankara fabric for little girls is that this is 100% cotton, most of them, brilliant colors, very sturdy, and can be washed again and again. Because remember, the places that we are sending these dresses to may not have access to your typical washing machine and dryer situation. They could be washing in a basin, they could be washing in a river, they could be washing in all sorts of different situations rather than dropping in their tab and turning on their machine. Also, we know that if this is a great dress for a little girl, this might be one of her only dresses. So therefore, we need a sturdy fabric that's flexible, soft on their skin, and easy to care for. Over here is an example of some of my Ankara fabric. In order to get started with my Ankara fabric, beside the selection, you can let your heart go wherever it wants to go with selecting fabric. Now, most genuine Ankara fabric comes with a label telling where it's from, and they're really attached very, very well. So, use a pressing cloth and a warm iron, and move it around on the label until it is ready to let go. Now it still leaves quite a bit of sticky residue. You can either avoid it by not cutting on this piece, or you can use your presser cloth or a fabric that you don't mind getting gum on, and you can iron it and pull and iron it and pull until a lot of the residue is gone. Most of the residue will be gone by the time the garment is washed at least 1 or 2 times. So just using a warm, I have mine very close to the cotton setting. The presser foot is essential. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, just in case. And that way you can easily pull the labels off. Now, this is an example of what can happen when you try and pull the label off by itself. It tears and shatters. And so, this is where your trusty pressing cloth and a nice warm iron comes into play. Now, Ankara usually comes in 6-yard increments, but on several shops that I'm going to list below, you can buy Ankara by the yard or by the half yard. Ankara is distinguished by whether it is a wax print. This sheen that you see is a light spraying of wax, and some people love the wax on their fabric, and they try and keep the wax going as long as possible, because the wax gives you opportunities to style and make shapes with the fabric that are held firm. But for my use, I need unwaxed Ankara. I want the vibrant fabric, but I need to wash as much of this wax out as possible. Now that I've removed all of my labels, except for this little stubborn old piece here, I'm going to take my fabric to the washing machine. I like to wash it on a warm setting, a gentle detergent, and I wash it and I fabric soften it, and then I hang it on the line. I'm trying to get as much of, if there's any dye that's in here, as well as the wax, getting the wax out of here. Also, when you wash your Ankara, you find out truly what you have. Now, why that's important is, this is the wax Ankara, this is the wax Ankara, and this dresser girl around the world is made from a wax Ankara. Now, when they were washed, this gave me a very sturdy, just the right feel for a wonderful dress that will endure on a little girl. When this wax Ankara was washed, it ended up giving me a much thinner cotton fabric, as you can see. It's still substantial, but it has a different hand, and it was not obvious when I bought it. It's 100% cotton, that's true, but the wax kind of gives you the illusion that it might be thicker than it is. And this was the same as well. And sometimes, if you are not careful, you will end up, when you wash the wax out, you will end up with a poly blend. That is what happened when I washed this wax fabric. I ended up with it was a polyester blend, heavy, a lot of cotton in it, but very light, very, very light and airy. And it was wonderful to make this double-sided dress. You know, that's what gave me the idea, light and fluffy and cool, but not what I was looking for when I'm doing my dresser girl around the world dresses. I'm off to the washing machine and the clothesline. Now, as I said, you have to wash your Ankara to find out the consistency. And I like this consistency. It's soft enough for the skin, and it's sturdy enough to be washed over and over again. Now, another reason why I love Ankara is because it usually comes in 6-yard lengths, maybe 50 or 60 inches wide. I have found that for every dress or outfit I've made, I've had plenty left over to make a dress for a girl around the world. All right, so these are some that I've made with Ankara Fabric. And these are some of the ones that I'm working on right now. Now, most makers have no issues with color. After all, we're sewers. We love to work with colors, but sometimes Ankara fabric is so vibrant, you might be a little confused about how to handle it. Now here's an example of a beautiful Ankara fabric, a kaleidoscope pattern, very bright, and you're like, well, what color am I going to make my pockets? If you feel very unsure about that, you can always put pockets on the inside seams, but you can tell that the overlying thing on this pattern is black. So you can make your pockets black or your frill black. You can make your accents black. You can always use that when you have a print such as this. Now remember, I love white as well, but I don't recommend white as a trim simply because of those laundry issues I talked about before. Also, kids come in all sorts of colors, and melanin rubs off, and sometimes white, no matter how hard you try, will develop a brownish, yellowish, pinkish tinge to it because it rubs against skin, and melanin will rub in there, and it's a protein, so it will stay. As well as white will tend to turn a little dingy or a little dark as time goes on, and we really want them to get a lot of good use out of the dress. They will love any dresses you send them, but I'm just thinking, if you're a sewer, you can think about it. Now, I'm not the best color theorist, but very often I kind of know what looks bright and what doesn't. You do too, right? So for instance, here's an Ankara dress that I'm working on. The predominant color in here is this reddish maroon or this purple. All right, so if I'm looking for something to accent as make the pockets, I can look for this blue color, this pink color, all right? But if I want to change a mood, I take out my color wheel. Yes, this is my color wheel from school. So if this dress is in the red and the purple range, right? Everything across from it, which is this green, will make it pop. It'll be its opposite. Now, on either side of that color are the things that will match it that are kind of less tonal, less contrasting. So if my dress is like this red purple, I can use a blue pocket or I could use an orange pocket, and that's analogous. It will work with it, okay? But if you want to pop a color, you'll go across the color wheel, and I'll show you an example of that. So now, for instance, this dresser girl, the majority of the color is pink and lavender, which would put it up here with the reds. All right, so a good pocket that was not too bright, not too contrasty would have been blue or orange, but I wanted a contrast, so I went across the color wheel down here to green, and that's why this dress ended up with these beautiful green pockets. Then I just had to figure out what type of green, and that was inside the leaves of the flower. But that's how I figure out my dresses. So for instance, so this is a blue. The majority of it is blue, and since it's soft, I wanted it to stay soft. I wasn't looking for a pop. So what is to the left and the right of blue? Red and pink, or green and green, and I used the pink to make this soft tonal thing. If I wanted it to pop and it was blue, I would have needed to use orange. Let me step back. I would have to go down. Here's the orange. I didn't want to use orange. All right, so that's my kind of small color theory 101 to help you when you're planning your dresses. There are many patterns to choose from. This year, they are sponsoring the Allison dress by Desiree, the Allison tent dress, and I will include 2 little ones I've made over here. And I also use the Dress a Girl Around the World pattern. I'll show you what those look like. This is the small, and this is the medium. And I make my dresses based on what fabric is left off, whether it's going to be small or medium. They're wonderful to make. Every dress must include a Dress a Girl Around the World label. You can get those from the Dress a Girl Around the World organization site. They'll send you a whole bag for a little bit of money. Alrighty. Now, those of you beginning sewers or anyone who's never sewn for the first time and is feeling a little anxious about making one of these dresses, I'm going to include a sew along. They are a breeze to make. You will enjoy it. If you're a seasoned sewer and you do not need to see me make this dress because you want to go back to making your dresses, then you can fast forward this. All right. All washed, sun dried, and ready to go. All right, in order to follow along, this is the fabric I decided on after washing. This is what I decided to work with. I think it's very fun and festive, and the fabric is very soft yet sturdy. All righty. Now, first thing, I'm using my Dress a Girl Around the World pattern. Let me find it. Yeah. I cut out the medium. We do have the small, but I cut out the medium with these side pockets that I really, really like. And I'm gonna do some alterations. So luckily it is only one piece. So I cut out 1, 2, 3, and so I'm going to do this pattern 3 different ways with this lovely Ankara fabric. Now for this pattern you need 100% cotton fabric or cotton blend. You need bias tape, no nylon or flimsy trims, extra wide double fold bias tape, and that's all you're going to need. All right, very simple, very straightforward. Oh, and you're going to need 2 pieces of elastic, probably 1/2 to 1 to 3/4 inch elastic, 7 inches long. All right, so let me see if I have all my things. All right, so I have my 7-inch pieces of elastic. I have my bias binding. Thank you, Mari. I made a whole bunch. Thank you. And I have some. Oh, this thing is decorative trim that I would like to help put on my pockets. I have cut out. This is my favorite pocket that I like, so I have cut that out of these 2 fabrics for 2 of the dresses, and I am going to make a second pocket from a pocket template that I created for one of the dresses. The pocket is going to be on the inside and top stitched in place, and I'm going to use this dungaree or lightweight denim to make the inside pocket. All right, okay. Okay, I'm going to transfer my markings onto my dresses that I'm working on. Remember, the front and the back is the same, so I'm going to snip where I'm going to place my pocket and where I'm going to place the turn under for the neck, and that's it. All right. Alrighty, so I folded under one for this part, and then I folded under the little part here and pressed it in place. Okay, so that is what I did with the fabric, with the fold one little part and then the other part. So I fold that, and then I folded it like so. Time to stitch. After pressing your folds in place, take them to the machine and stitch along the edge. Alright, so add a safety pin, or if you happen to have a threader, to put your elastic through and thread it through the casing that you created with your stitching. Make sure you secure the elastic in place at each end of the casing. Secure your elastic in place with a few machine stitches. These are the instructions for the patch pockets. Okay, now turn your pocket piece inside out, and you're going to stitch along the top, along that slanted edge, and then you're going to stitch along the very bottom to make the pocket. We're going to, after this point, we're going to trim and turn it inside out and iron it so that we can apply it to the front of our dress. I've chosen to embellish my pocket with rickrack. There are so many different options. You can use patches, buttons, but buttons cannot be functional on these dresses. That's the only limitation you have. All right, line up your patch pocket with the other marking at the side of your dress and pin it in place. Once you have pinned your patch pocket in place, you're going to stitch around the edge, making sure not to stitch close the opening where your little girl is going to put her hands. Now for the patch pockets version of this dress, I'm going to do a French seam. So that means that my wrong sides of my fabric, I'm going to have them touching, and then my front facing fabric is going to be facing outward. Now, you are free to serge the side of your dress to make it more secure, and in that case, you will have both of your fabric, the sides of your dress, the wrong sides facing outward. You can also double stitch and trim, and you can single stitch and pinking shear. I like a French seam because all of the edges are enclosed, and currently my serger is acting up, so I'm going with the French seams. So for me, both of my right sides are facing out. I'm going to pin it in place, and then I'm going to stitch, like edge stitch, at the very edge of my fabric on one side, and then I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch it in place. Alright, once I have stitched this in place, then we'll see what we go to next. Now that I narrow stitched it along that edge, I'm going to take it to the ironing board and turn it inside out and iron it. That way I've enclosed the raw edges, and now on a 3/8 inch stitch, I'm going to stitch that seam in place again. And that is a modified kind of French seam. It will hold all of the stray pieces of selvages of your and seams of your dress in place. Now on one of my dresses, I made a set-in pocket. That means it was attached to the side seams. So I'm going to attach my self-drafted pockets in place and stitch it into the same position that I was going to put my patch pockets. Then I'm going to line up my sides of my dress and stitch them on a very narrow stitch in place all the way around the outside and around the pocket that's sewn in place. You will have to iron the sleeve, pocket allowance on the inside of the dress to make sure it's facing into the pocket, as you can see. It is not your standard insertion, but this is the way I can kind of do a French seam on a pocket, which is kind of a little unusual. Now you are going to turn your dress inside out, and you're going to stitch along the seam 3/8 of an inch all the way around the side seams and the pocket. Now hopefully you can see what I did here. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to stitch in the seam a little bit away, say about 5/8 of an inch away from the top of the pocket and at the bottom of the pocket along that 3/8 of an inch stitch. And that will give a little, it will give a little closure to the pocket so it's not quite so open. All right, so I stitched that in place. Now I'm going to turn my dress right side out, and my pocket should be enclosed inside of the seam. Now I like to press a lot. I find that my garments come out better. So I would advise you to press things in place so that you can. Now you see the patch pocket is now in place. No, sorry, not the patch pocket. The inseam pocket is in place underneath there. Now I would like to stitch around the inseam pocket and secure it to the front of the garment. Not the front and the back, just the front. Now it's time to use all that wonderful bias tape that I made along the edges. I know that it takes about 52 inches to make the length of bias tape I need for each side of the dress. Now remember, this bias tape is going to go along the armhole and extend to make shoulder ties. So this bias tape that I made, I'm going to go back to the iron and I'm going to iron it in half and get ready to put it in position. Now I'm going to measure 26 inches, which is half the length of my bias tape per side of my dress. And at the 26-inch mark on my bias tape, I am going to finger press or put a little pin in place to let me know where it's halfway down the length of my bias tape. I'm going to connect it to the joining part of the front and the back of my dress at the underarm. That way I know that my bias pieces will, tape pieces will be in their correct position. I'm going to pin my bias tape in place along the dress edge, under the underarm and up to the very top of the pattern, just so that there's no shifting when I stitch it on the machine. All right, now that I've pinned those pieces in place, it's time to handle the very tip of my bias tape. I want to make sure that the end is secured inside. So I'm going to stitch along the very top, the very tip, and turn it inside out so that as I stitch my bias tape down and as I stitch along the edge of the armhole, all of those raw edges will be enclosed. Now stitch along the edge of your bias tape, securing all your raw edges, and go under the arms, making sure, especially when you get to the actual edge of the dress, be very careful to make sure you enclose that elastic that's at the top of the dress inside the bias tape. Sometimes it likes to slide around, so that's why we pin it in place. I've added a narrow hem to the bottom of the dress and added the patches below the pocket. Remember, the patches are a requirement. I hope this makes you feel less anxious about being part of this project, and I hope you enjoy experimenting in the world for Ankara. Ankara is for everyone, as I said. You might find that you want to make a big girl dress after working with this fabric. Give it a try. I have included some of the places where I buy my fabric from. I use Dose of Fabric on Etsy. I also use House of Mamiwata, and I also use AliExpress for almost all of my Ankara beside the ones I find at Ping's. But as you know, Ping's does not have an online presence and does not ship anywhere. So I hope this was very helpful, and I hope you join us in making these dresses for these girls who so surely need them. All right, take care, keep making, and we'll see you around the workshop. Remember, Ankara is your friend. Just have fun.